Greetings and welcome to this edition of
Positronic.
I am Barry P. Cook. I want to talk to you about the latest episodes of Doom Patrol. The first one was called 1917 Patrol, and it opens with Rita emerging in 1917 in Iowa, not knowing her name, and this causes her to insist that she is Laura DeMille because she finds a paper in her pocket with that name on it. This all occurs under the watchful eye of the talking gorilla guy and the brain in a box. I don't know what that's about, but we'll see. Back in the present, Larry sits with his son, who seems delirious. Jane sends Kay to the surface, meaning that she gives her control of the body so that she can go buy some shoes, which apparently she really wants to do. Meanwhile, Rita gets taken off to the Bureau of Normalcy, which looks like the 1917 version of the Men in Black headquarters, where she's brought before actual Laura DeMille, who of course is Lady Rouge, who apparently is in a position of authority at the Bureau of Normalcy, though she doesn't recognize her. So Rita doesn't have her memory at all. Lady Rouge asks Rita a bunch of questions, rather comic questions, to try to determine what her powers are, and she ends up discovering her ability. Rita then encounters the weird guy from the woods with the bicycle on his back, who was talking to Cyborg in a previous episode, who takes her to a room for metahumans where apparently the Shelley woman who Jane encountered in the woods and the Japanese woman from the box that Cliff had run into are hanging out. Instead of buying shoes back in the real world, Kay steals a bike, not understanding that you can't just take anything you see, as Jean watches what she's doing through a viewer thing, like you might find at the top of the Empire State Building, which I guess allows her to see through Kay's eyes, but how she could see what other people are doing, like what Kay's doing, I don't know. Anyway, at which point she's confronted by Pretty Polly. Rita, back in 1917, is now being called Bendy because she can stretch and all that, and she's taken into the inner sanctum of the Sisterhood of Dada, which apparently are the Japanese girl and Lady Rouge and the weird guy and Shelley. She meets a guy there who's also a member who has a bird cage in his chest, where his heart used to be, which is kind of weird. Back in the present, Larry's son seems to regain his lucidity, and he tears into Larry for not being around when he was growing up, to which Larry responds by reminding his son that he never asked to become what he is before asking his son to leave. Meanwhile, Cliff spent the whole episode playing computer games while cyber communicating with a cam girl, and he's like spending all kinds of money just to keep her on the line while he's playing a video game. It's really weird. Cyborg, meanwhile, seems to go off on some kind of pilgrimage to the mountains. Back in the past, Rita has a bit of a meltdown, literally, when she hears people talking badly about her at the Bureau of Normalcy in the cafeteria, at which point she's rescued by members of the Sisterhood of Dada, who step up and make a scene, which includes literally turning all of the employees into clowns. And Lady Rouge enters, revealing herself to be a shapeshifter when she rescues her fellows from getting in trouble for what they did to help Rita. Back in the present, Kay returns to the underground unharmed, even though she was confronted by someone who stopped her from riding the bike into traffic, which Jane thought was going to be a bad scene. She thought that the guy was going to menace her, but he was just like, hey, what are you doing? You're going to drive this bike into traffic. Cyborg visits the lab where apparently the artificial skin that his father told him about is being developed. It turns out that though Larry had thought that his little internal friend that was roaming around in his head had gone, it hasn't. Before this episode actually ends, somehow the fireplace in the mansion goes off, or goes all wonky, and it writes a phrase on the wall that relates to the Sisterhood of Dada. So this episode was good because it dealt with sort of the whole thing about, sometimes how people are misfits and they don't fit in, and it explains what the Sisterhood of Dada is. It sort of shows, what their origins are, and I think it was good for Rita to engage with people other than her friends at the mansion, because they really all live kind of solitary lives. As a group, they don't really interact with other people on a really connecting level. So it was good for her to kind of experience that. And she's kind of old-fashioned too, so it was kind of good for her to be in the past, I thought. But, the rest of the episode was kind of filler. I didn't really like the whole thing with Cliff, because it's showing him addicted to video games, or at least to talking to cam girls, so that was an unfortunate thing. And I want to know what's going on with Larry, so it didn't answer that. So it was it's going to answer it eventually, but it was frustrating. So it was just kind of a middle of the road episode. But let's talk about the next episode, which was called Bird Patrol. In the very beginning, Larry pukes out a cosmic larvae or some kind of thing, and at the same time, a flyer about some kind of event that Dada is holding. So I guess they worked some magic on him somehow, and at the same time that he pukes out this space larva that he apparently picked up in space, there's a flyer there as well. I don't know, but anyway, he pukes out this gross space larvae thing. Victor, meanwhile, is meeting with the synthetic skin people and is told that in order to get the synthetic skin, he would have to lose all of his cyber tech. We find out that Cliff, aka Robot Man, sold Jane's record collection in order to have money to stay on the line with the cam girl, and she reacts quite badly before pulling a Dada scarf from her throat. She starts to choke, and she does one of these, and a scarf comes out, and it's got the same kind of information as the flyer that Larry coughed up. And she notices that Cliff suddenly manifests a Dada logo shirt, like just right on his person, which is kind of weird. Turns out he also sold Flit's workout tapes, Flit being one of Jane's personalities, and she takes him to his daughter's house for some reason. She just transports him there. I don't know what the point of that was, but she does. In the past, Lady Rouge, aka Laura, meets with a guy who can manifest objects from drawings as Rita looks on. Back in the present, Larry pokes at the worm thing, and it seems to be alive, causing Lady Rouge to suggest it's a space parasite, which I was saying before, and that he should burn it. Jane, meanwhile, visits Kay, internally in their mind, whose bike has been stolen, causing her to be quite pissed. I guess inside the psyche, she also has a bike. I don't know. Cliff then visits with his grandson, but his Parkinson's comes back a little bit, and his daughter gives him her credit card so that he can have it in case of an emergency while they go out and he babysits. Larry, meanwhile, doesn't burn the space thing. He takes it out to the woods and sort of like gives it a sandwich. Oh, here's a sandwich, here's a blanket in case you get cold. I guess he's going to abandon it there, but he feels bad about it. It's kind of weird. But as he's doing this, we see a weird smoke move in, like a fog. We flash over to Victor, who contacts his girl who's on the run, and he tells her that he's removing his tech so that he can have the skin, and she tells him, don't do that, it would be a mistake, and he kind of goes back and forth with her. Jane, meanwhile, internally goes looking for Kay's bike, and she meets resistance. I guess the other personalities don't want the kid to have the bike. I don't really understand it, but they have sort of a discussion, if you want to say that. In the past, we see that the Dadas have a crisis of conscience, and this is where they decided to do the Great Flagellation, or whatever it is. Meanwhile, Jane tries to convince Kay that someone only borrowed the bike and just misplaced it, but Kay doesn't buy it. The crazy fog continues to swoop in, and it transports Jane, Cliff, Lady Rouge, Larry, and Victor to a single location from different places, wherever they were, and they all start doing that little jig, just like the Dadas had done in the past. So we get a scene that goes back and forth where we see the Dadas going through certain motions, and the team starts going through the same certain motions. It's like they're reenacting what happened, and it's clearly involuntary. We then see kind of what it's all about. We flash back to when these moves were originally made by the Dada people. It turns out that they were corralled and all labeled as weapons, and Rita's friend is killed, the guy with the birdcage. After Laura's apparent reluctant betrayal of them, she kind of turns them in because she feels like she has no choice, but she doesn't really want to. And what we're seeing in the real world is the Doom Patrol people are cycling through the same event with Lady Rouge there in the present as well. Before Rita, who has apparently been an agent of the Bureau for 70 years now, somehow shows up back in the present with some of the other Dada people and uses the fog to take the whole team to her, where she's got some kind of a giant egg, which itself births a kind of egg, but it has a face and it can fly, and it looks like the dead guy that had the bird cage, and they want Lady Rouge to somehow resuscitate him, but she declines, and the egg thing splits into a flock of egg things with faces which can all fly, at which point Lady Rouge joins them by also turning into a bird before several of the birds collide with each of the members of the patrol, and when they make contact with them, bodily, they fly into them. It zaps them away to we don't know where. And that's apparently where next week's episode is going to pick up, wherever they were zapped off to. So, very strange. I was glad that Rita came back from the past, that she's in the present, but what it means is that she lived through that whole time period. So now she has all these memories and experiences that she didn't have before she went back to the past. So it's going to be interesting to see how that changes her personality and whatnot. And it's weird that time travel erases your memory, like, because Lady Rouge doesn't remember everything either that she did in the past. So it's weird because they both forgot different time periods, but they both forgot chunks of their life. It's kind of weird. I don't know why they spent so much time with Kay and the bike and Jane. That might turn into something, I don't know. I'm not really at all invested in the part about Vic. I don't care whether he gets a skin. I don't care whether he gives up his cyber tag. I don't care if he keeps it. I don't care if he doesn't get the skin. I just don't care. I don't have any connection to that character at all. Like, at all. I like Cliff. I like Rita. I like Jane, especially, and all her personalities. I like Larry. Probably not as much as them, but I like Larry. Cyborg, I could care less. And part of that is because his costume is so bad. The tech that's supposed to be his actual body looks like he's wearing a costume. It's so bad for like an HBO Max show. I can't get past it, and I don't know. I guess I don't identify with him. I've never been a half cyborg, half human person, whose life was dramatically altered by an accident and who has issues with his dad, who was part of that accident or part of the solution to the accident, that Cyborg both likes and hates. I don't know. I just don't connect with that character. On the same token, I don't connect with Cliff, but at least he's funny. So, I don't know. I don't care about that aspect of the story at all. So, we'll have to see where we pick up next week. Until then, once again, I wish you all peace and long life.